In this tutorial, I'm going to be covering array lists. Even though I said I covered them in an earlier episode, I mentioned that those were actually arrays, not array lists. Both are very useful, but array list is actually a class object that you have to make, so I'll be explaining those today. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to do everything inside of here. But you can have like array lists out here, as you should know. So let's just make an array list. The first thing that we're going to do, just so you know where it comes from, is after your package, import java.util.arraylist. And that warning is because we just didn't use it. So we're going to create an array list. Array list equals new array list, and it doesn't require any parameters. So the reason it has a warning under it with this raw type stuff is basically the way an array list works is it likes to have the type of file that's going to be in it after it. So just for the sake of this, as an example, we're going to use Fred as another thing, and what we're going to do is we're just going to type Fred here and Fred here, and that takes care of that warning. And what that tells the list is that anything in that list has to be a Fred object, and anything that extends Fred object also works, but it's basically so you couldn't have a cats object in this list if cats did not extend Fred. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a use for this. So I'm just going to do a public int number, and then in our Fred constructor we're going to require a number to be passed in, and I'm going to set number equal to that. And then let's create a couple Fred objects. So Fred f equals new Fred, and just for the sake of it, let's create a random too. Random r equals new random, and Control Shift O to import that. And then what we're going to do here is going to do r.next int, how about 50. And let's just do this in a for loop so that it happens a couple times. So for int I equals 0 I, while I is less than 50, add 1 to I. So this is going to run 50 times. And then all we got to do is list.add f, and it adds this object to the list, and the list just keeps piling on top of each other. So the way you can see this happen is if we print out the size of the list, which you can get by doing list.size, and just for the sake of it we're going to do size equals plus that. So now if we run this, it's going to go all the way through saying size equals 50. It should go all the way to 50, as it did. And you can see it scrolls up, starts at 1, goes all the way down. And you think it should start at or never mind, don't even get into that. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to loop through all of these objects and print out whatever the number was. So the way we can do this is we can do another for loop for int I equals 0 while I is less than list.size. We don't want to do less than and equal or equal to, because lists reference objects in the same way that arrays do. So the size is actually one more than the last object you can reference in it. so I plus plus, and then what you do is you do list dot get, and then whatever index you want to get. So for this, we're just going to be getting I, and we want to set something to that, because otherwise it's just useless. So we're just going to make a new Fred from list equals list dot get I, and then we're going to print out Fred plus I, so this tells us what number the Fred is, plus, let's put that there, number is plus from list dot number. So now if we run this, you can see all these random numbers that we got. And to show you what I mean, why it had to be less than, not less than or equal to, if we do less than or equal to, we're going to get an error on the last one. Okay, so now you've seen how that works. The other thing you can do with these lists is you can check, this is one of the things that you can't do as easily with a normal array, is you can check for a specific object in that list. So let's just get rid of this for loop. Let's create a couple Freds. Fred f equals new Fred r.next int 10, and then we'll just copy and paste this a couple times. 4 of them should be good. 2 and 3, and let's add f and f1 to the list. List.add f, list.add f1. Now what you can do is if list.contains, so you can actually check to see if there's a specific object in the list already. So if list.contains f, actually, yeah, sure, why not? And let's actually just make these 1, 0, and 2, and erase that one. And list.add f2. So if list.contains f, we're going to print out contains. So now if we run this, you can see it contains it, but if we move where we're adding it to the list, then you can see it doesn't print out anything, which means it's not on the list. So that can be very useful in many instances. For example, if you're trying to code an entity system and you have to add multiple entities, like you have to mess with the entities a couple times, and they're coming from a list and you want to put them back on, you don't want to put them on multiple times. Or another thing is, if you just want to see if an object's in a list. So like, if you have a list of special objects, and then you have an object that you're not sure where it belongs to, you can check to see which list the object is a part of. So the other thing that you can do, which I wanted to show you with this, is if we do list.add f again, and we'll recreate our for loop, except this time we're going to do the same thing that you can do with an arrays. It's an enhanced for loop. We can just do for Fred from list, and then a colon, and then list, and it'll just loop through the list. And we're just going to print out from list dot number. So this is going to print out 0, 1, 2. Now the thing I want to show you though is you can add an object to a specific spot on the list. So we can actually add this f2 to the I did that backwards. we can add it in the 1 position, which is going to be actually the 2nd position. You'll see what I mean. And we're going to add F2. So the way this works is you can see 2 is now before the 1, because even though we added the F1 first, this one is now in front of it because 0, this one's added on 0, this one's added on 0, this one's added on 1, and then this one's added on 1 again, which pushes this one on to 2. Now if we add this one on 0, it'll come first, as can be seen there. There's a couple other features of lists, and you can just find most of them by doing list dot and then control space and see what you have. Like, you can remove a specific object from the list, or you can remove it by its index. So if we wanted to say, after we've added it to here, we wanted to list.remove 0, then whatever object is at 0 will no longer be on the list. So in this case we remove the 2, but if we just turn this back into a normal list add, we'll remove this first one. And then we can remove a specific object. So if we just remove F2 here, then it's not on there. And there's a couple other features, like you can just clear the whole list, but you can figure most of those out on your own. So that's going to be the end of this tutorial. If there's anything in Java that you've heard about that you'd like me to cover, then leave a comment on that and I'll try to cover it. And if you've been following my text-based game tutorials, then I need an idea for the storyline, because we're getting to the point where we need to actually start developing the story. There's a couple bugs that I could iron out, but I'm not very creative and I don't really have a storyline to follow. So if anyone would like to type up even something small, just as like a basic thing to follow, it'd be really cool and I'd give you credit for it. So you can just message me on YouTube or something with maybe a link to it. But anyway, thanks for watching.